You're listening to the Rocketeer Minute's 80th anniversary. Once again, here's Hal Bryant, Jim O'Kane, and Billy Campbell.
Welcome back to this special 80th anniversary of the Rocketeer, where for the past 100 and so many episodes, we've been talking about probably the greatest adventure movie that Walt Disney ever made, the 1991 Joe Johnston directed feature, The Rocketeer. I am one of your hosts, Jim O'Kane of TVDads.com.
And I remain Hal Bryan, an airplane nerd from the Experimental Aircraft Association here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
And unlike what our silver-voiced voiceover artist Jordan Rich said, Billy Campbell is not with us today because, well, he had a bit of exciting news in the interim between our discussion with William Sanderson. It seems Billy just got nominated for an international Emmy for his show Cardinal.
That is really exciting news. That was really cool to hear, and what a little fanboy moment we each had when we could text him congratulations and he responded. I know it's pathetic, but still, it's cool.
Oh, very exciting. Yeah, let me just read the little article here from Variety. It says the Dateline Hollywood, the International Emmys are living up to their name with a globe-spanning set of nominees announced Thursday with this year's awards. Ed 'em all shine, HBO, Fox and Sony all scored nominations, while Amazon and Netflix landed just one apiece, a modest showing given their recent run at the award shows and their increasing number of international originals. In the Best Actor category, Julio Andrade is nominated at the Fox Network's Latin American drama One Against All. Billy Campbell for the Canadian-produced Cardinal, Lars Mikkelsen for the Scandinavian series Ride Upon the Storm, and Tolga Saratas for the Turkish series Söz. The fascinating thing about the Best Actor category here is that Lars Mikkelsen is starring in. He's up for an Emmy, and Billy is actually in a role that Lars had originated in his Scandinavian series. So they're basically two guys coming up with the. Two guys up against the in for pretty much the same part, but exciting news. So wish Billy very well on that, and we will have him back in the future. But he's definitely, his career has not been slowed. If anything, he's really rocketing ahead.
Now, Jim, really, he's rocketing ahead.
Well, you got to use that kind of a genre.
Too early for that. Now, Jim, how much of Billy's recent career success do you think he can credit to his appearances here on the Rocketeer Minute?
I think it had, think about all those Hollywood agents driving around and Canadian agents, and who knows, worldwide, people are just tuning in and wanting to know more about this breakthrough series for him.
Exactly.
And
now, were you and I nominated for anything recently?
I keep scanning the Googles and I don't see anything out there. But it could be tomorrow. It could be some. We're waiting on that call.
It's never too late.
Everybody knows how to reach us. But there's so many veterans are doing things. I was looking. I noticed in the news just the other day that Joe Johnston is still keeping busy. He's got a new show coming out, or a new movie coming out. Disney. He's back again with Disney. And he's doing the Nutcracker and the Four Realms, which I guess is an anime, or it's a live action version of the Nutcracker story.
It's amazing to think he's back at Disney, because I guess you never say never, but boy, there was a period there when you would have figured that was just impossible.
Well, I think that part of it is the Disney that he worked for isn't the Disney that's around today. So he might be, we have to remember that he did work. Sort of for Disney when he was doing the first Avenger with
that's true.
Captain America.
Yeah, there was certainly the tie there.
And we can always hope that he worked some kind of 1930s, 1940s action into the Nutcracker somehow.
We can dream.
Don't know.
And he was also attached to a new Narnia movie, but I haven't really heard anything about that recently. So I'm not sure what's happening there.
No, it's kind of gone dark there, but at least he's definitely one of the hardest working men in show business. So he's got that going, and we'll have to see. That's coming up in November of 2018. If you're listening to this in the far future, so if it's in the far future, maybe you can see it on Netflix, but now, or whatever Disney streaming channel is available in the future. So many things going on with the original property itself, the Rocketeer, which is still in the Disney the Disney realm. The kids' TV network Disney Junior has announced that their new animated series is going to be The Rocketeer, and it is a very different take on it. It's geared for the I want to say preteen, but it's even younger than preteen. It's somewhere in like the 5 to 8 year old range,
Yeah, I think it's like
and
pre-tween, if that's a thing.
yeah, and it's about the show is about a young girl who gets a jetpack and some superhero gear, setting her up as the next incarnation of the Rocketeer. So that'll be kind of a we had heard there was when we had talked with Danny Bilson and the late Paul DeMeo. What we had heard at the time was that there was going to be a teenage version of the Rocketeer that was going to be an African American teenager growing
Yeah,
up in post World War II, and somehow gets involved with the rocket pack and all that. But this one sounds just they're aiming even lower with that larger market, the lower age groups, and as yet to see. I'll keep an open mind and see how it goes.
sure. Um, yeah, although I was more intrigued originally by at least another period piece, and it doesn't sound like this is it, but I guess we don't really know for sure. But the lead character is named Kit, and she's got a gadget-minded best friend named Tesh, and her uncle is an airplane mechanic named Ambrose. So presumably that's Peavy,
Ambrose Peavy, yeah.
right? So or
So
Peavy's
Ambrose
grandson,
Peavy.
or who knows, or maybe there's no connection whatsoever. And then speaking of oh, actually, one other thing about this, about the animated series is they're going to be 22-minute episodes, but each one is going to have two stories, and there will be an original
Wow.
song in each episode. So it's I picture a very young kid sort of sing along kind of thing. So
I can hardly wait for the rocket. The rocket will come to us. That's the song. Wait.
yes, exactly. And maybe once in a while a feel good number about punching Nazis. Who knows?
Well, maybe
But
they could bring Laura Harden back in. We can.
I was gonna say maybe she'll come in and sing for it. So we'll see what happens. But
Yeah, yes.
speaking of young women playing, donning the rocket pack and the helmet, IDW, who's been doing limited run comic series for quite a few years now around their property, and some cool crossover stuff like Rocketeer and the Spirit and things like that. So December 26th, they've got the Rocketeer Reborn, which is a 5-issue miniseries that's coming up, and it's their bid. And this is when I get nervous, open mind and everything, but it's their bid to reintroduce this bold crusader for the 20th century. And it's kind of interesting. The cover art, the masthead shows what sure looks like original Cliff, and there's a classic police car chasing a bad guy, leaving a trail of dust. But then we see a diner that looks very sort of retro and 50s, and a helmet sitting on a stool. But the outfits and the fact that there's somebody crouching down, sneaking a picture with an iPhone, tells me it's probably not set in the 50s. So, in fact, the description even says 80 years have passed since Cliff first discovered the jetpack, and but somebody finds it again. So, in that sense, that's kind of interesting, because part of the appeal of that original story is the fact that Cliff kind of stumbles across this thing, and he finds it and assumes the mantle. So, if you're going to pass it on somehow, the idea of somebody else sort of coming across it and rediscovering it, I think, is intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that he packed it in creosot or something, so it didn't get any kind of corrosion.
Right.
But we'll
Cosmoline, as was the style of the day.
Cosmoline, yes. So just once they got enough solvent on it and polished it out, I think it could be like Mark Klupp's
right. Yeah, exactly.
Cub, only in a larger scale. Well, we've been talking to a bunch of veterans of our show in the interim since we were last on, and I know that you had a great discussion with Steve Hinton.
I interviewed Steve. I spent some time with him at his home base in Chino, California, a few months ago, and then had done a follow-up interview with him for a feature for a magazine that I write for. And there was no way we weren't going to talk about the Rocketeer at least a little bit. We talked about his movie Flying. Steve got into flying for the cameras for the TV series Baba Black Sheep, or Black Sheep Squadron. But anyway, he was supposed to be doing more of the GB flying. He was ferrying an airplane to Santa Maria, And I apologize, my notes are not quite clear enough to remind me which type. It was one of the other sort of vintage racing replicas. He was ferrying to Santa Maria and lost the engine, landed in a field, and actually got to recuperate for a while. So Craig picked up more of the flying, and then Steve joined the shoot a little bit later. From Steve's raw interview, I'm just going to sort of summarize a couple of things, and I'll give you some direct quotes as we go through this. He's talking about Craig Hosking, and I think we talked to Craig about this. So Craig flew a Pitts biplane. It's very, very small, probably a single seater. There are 2-seat versions as well. Super maneuverable aerobatic biplane, and had an extra set of landing gear up on the top wing. And so he would end his show by landing upside down. Craig obviously, knew what he was doing, still knows what he was doing. But anyway, here's a thing talking about the meeting up at Chino, Steve's home airport, with Craig, and Craig's got the GB, and he says, so Craig takes off. I go to Chino. This again, Steve talking, and I meet him there, and he was all over the blanking runway with it. It's like, holy blank. He says, want to give it a try? And I said, no. So the initial impressions of the GB for the Rocketeer, not all that impressive. But then, and you got to remember that Steve Hinton is used to flying bigger, heavier warbirds, Mustangs and Corsairs and 38s and just about everything like that. So really, really small, very squirrely, super short coupled tail dragger like that isn't something that anybody had a lot of experience in. But then Steve went on; he got a bunch of experience. He borrowed somebody's Kristen Eagle, which is kind of an outgrowth of the Pitts, a very similar airplane. Did a bunch of flying in that, got more comfortable, and then was in better shape for the. Craig talked about this a little bit, and Steve reinforced it. Talking about the best way to land the GB, they finally figured out how to land it. Was actually to go quite a bit faster than you normally would, which is really counterintuitive when landing any airplane, especially one that's squirrely on the ground and you've is a handful once the wheels touch. But they said they would just come in as if they're going to do a low pass at about 100 miles an hour, and then just stick the wheels on the runway, and then just let it decelerate from there. Chop the power once the wheels touch, or ease off the power once the wheels touch.
So it's kind of like skiing, and it's a lot like if you go too slow skiing,
Sure.
you're going to fall over, but you just got to
it makes sense
keep rolling on
because
through.
the rudder on the GB is really, really small, so it's going to be most effective when you've got more wind going over it, more speed. And then if you're landing on the main wheels, as that tail starts to drop, a number of things happen. Number one, what little rudder effectiveness you have starts to go away because the rudder is now blocked by that big fat engine and pudgy fuselage up front, so you don't really get airflow that way. And so there'd be a long period of time there where you would have really, really marginal steering. So it makes sense to sort of get it on the ground, get it lined up straight, get it under control, and then as it slows down, hopefully you're still set up.
Well, and he survived, so it worked.
Number one, Steve has you'll never stop singing Craig's praises. He's a fan of both Steve and Jim Gavin, who was so entrenched in the film and TV industry, he actually had his own office at Universal. So Jim Gavin, very much another one of these more modern day sort of Paul Mance, Frank Tallman types involved in these things. But probably the best single quote I got from Steve about flying the GB, he said, "I've flown 100 plus airplanes, and that was the worst piece of crap I've ever flown." So it's interesting because I definitely got a vibe from him. He's got really fond memories of working on the movie, but he doesn't have much good to say about that particular airplane. And he reiterated what Craig told us about how when the shoot was over, and they were going to take it from Santa Maria back to they sort of looked at each other and said, you want to fly it back? No. Do you want to fly it? No. So they just took it apart and put it on a truck, and hasn't flown since. And as we've said before, it's now in the museum in Seattle. I guess one other last bit was kind of interesting. I think we talked on the show here and there about a guy named Delmar Benjamin who had a replica of a GBR2, which is similar to the we see in the Rocketeer, bigger. This was a modern day replica. There were certainly some upgrades and things, but it still had, the same configuration as an original GB, and he would do his amazing, very smooth aerobatic routines and everything in it. And Steve talked about that a little bit, and said, he said, man, that guy could fly. Why would he even roll that thing? He said, I wouldn't even think of rolling that airplane. And he said, roll a DC-3 before I tried to roll, the GB. Again, just squirrely and unstable, and certainly unforgiving. But you watch the Rocketeer, and you get nothing but just butter smooth flying in it. Those low passes, even the, we don't really see a landing. We see a
toe, actually. Yeah.
Yes, we see a toe and things like that. But that that first pass, that whole watch this PV when he's
over the bean field and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he's just tearing down the runway, at a few feet off the deck. It's spectacular.
Wow. Yeah. It's been, and the thing is, when I first watched the movie, I didn't know most of this stuff, and being able to talk with the people that were doing it, that's probably one of the best parts of this show, is that we can talk about every minute, as it were. So,
right. Well, in these previous 2 episodes we did with Billy and William Sanderson, I mean, what a hoot was. How amazing was Skeets?
Yeah, it was. I mean, that he was one of the eyewitnesses, and it was great being able to be part of that mini reunion that we had between the two of them. It was great, just kind of like overhearing the conversation. Hopefully, we can do this in the future sometime. I know Billy's got a very busy schedule, but if we can arrange more reunions, I would hear some of those.
You mean the Emmy-nominated William Campbell has a busy schedule?
The Emmy-nominated, yes. Yes. And we did hear that there is another season of Cardinal coming in the future. So that's a great bit of news. I've enjoyed the series a lot, and I would love to see some more of that great show.
Well worth checking out on Hulu. And we still have guests out there that we've been in touch with that we've just never been able to coordinate schedules. We've got another special effects guy waiting in the wings. We still have had talks with the director of the museum out at Santa Maria Airport. So I would not be at all surprised to find out that we've got some more episodes trickling out here and there.
Yeah, so stay tuned to this little channel that you're on. If you still subscribe to us on iTunes or on Google Play, please keep those up. We will be returning sometime in the future. Can't say when, but who knows? So please be with us next time, and we look forward to it here on the Rocketeer Minute. So until next time, over and out.